Okay, so what I don't understand in the current atmosphere that we inhabit is why a rich Caucasian European American would agree to be interrogated on film by an unfriendly tribe. Okay, was this a PR snafu? Was this a public relations gone horribly wrong? Or was it a CIA setup? I don't know for sure. All I know for 100% positive fact is that Eric Prince is in a hostile, unfriendly territory. And I'm not sure it was very smart for him to go into this interrogation. I mean, this was a textbook interrogation 101 on how to interview a war profiteer. And yet here he is. Now, do I get any pleasure out of watching a Navy SEAL sweat and squirm? No. Actually, hell no. Eric Prince is a veteran like myself. We are brothers in a way. We both served. The difference is I made $400 a month in the military and he's made over $1 billion in the military-industrial complex. So, well, let's proceed. Well, the first thing I want to discuss is the pupils. I mean, this is a classic case of fight or flight. I mean, and I got to tell you, Eric Prince did a pretty good job of sitting there and fighting. I mean, I challenge anybody to fight as well as he did in an unfriendly territory like this. I mean, I challenge anybody. So even though this was a horrible public relations snafu, I mean, he had no business being interrogated on film like this. But he made the call. There he is. We're discussing it. And he only insulted the audience one time, which really ain't that bad. Well, I'll show you the insult later on during the end of the video. But this is a classic case of fight or flight. Why do I mention the pupils? Because when the body is under the fight or flight response of the autonomic nervous system, what happens is when the body is under stress, this induces pupil dilation. And I want you to notice Eric Prince's pupils before, at the beginning of the interview, and then towards the end of the interview. You can definitely see a difference in the size of his pupils. This is normal in a situation like this. Okay, so here's Eric Prince at the beginning of the interview. You notice that he's somewhat happy. He's comfortable. His pupils are not so much dilated right here. And then we get to about the 15-minute mark, somewhere around there. And you can tell at this point he's thinking this is probably a mistake. Coming into unfriendly territory, this is, he knew he was being hijacked, or he was being ambushed. And then, of course, near the end, you got to give him credit. He didn't run away. He stood his ground. He fought as hard as he could, but it was a mistake, and he knew it. But I will give him some points there for hanging in there like a soldier, like a man, and fighting as hard as he could. But I mean, how do you defend the military-industrial complex and their actions over the last 2 decades? You cannot defend that type of behavior. But at least he does admit that there is a military-industrial complex.
Endless wars. And the Pentagon, look, there is a real military-industrial complex. Look, we employed thousands of people. And I would never say that the men were perfect. We didn't employ angels. We employed veterans.
Well, here Mr. Prince is telling the truth, because military men are not trained to square dance with some college girl on Saturday night and then go moseying in to the bank on Monday morning at 9 a.m. No, military men are trained to dance, but we do the dance of the warrior.
Because you yourself have referred to the people your men were fighting in Iraq as barbarians who crawled out of the sewer. You say in your memoir, these were the chanting barbarians American troops had been sent to liberate. Which is true. I think if you referred to terrorists, you call them whatever you want. But you said these were the chanting barbarians American troops had been sent to liberate. You weren't sent to liberate terrorists. Sounds like you're talking about Iraqis.
Sir, look,
From your words, from your memory.
the decision of
Because the word Blackwater is synonymous with the wars of the American occupation of Iraq. There is not a single Iraqi that I know. I mean, I'm one of those barbarians that was liberated by your country.
But unfortunately, it does get worse, which makes me wonder if there's not a public relations team out there that's going to get fired this week. Yeah, maybe Prince should be looking for some better headhunters.
there is no Blackwater, no FSG.
You sold Blackwater.
You're right. There is no.
I agree with that. Do you think calling someone a viceroy in charge of an East India company is going to go down well with brown folks?
Look, for 250 years.
The problem is the way you pitched it is, do you think it was helpful to tell the Afghans we're going to be like, quote, the East India Company, which violently ruled India on behalf of the British Empire in the 18th and 19th centuries? Was it wise to talk about having a viceroy in charge of the country? I mean, you're not hiding the fact that this is a colonialist project when you use language like that.
Well, other than the pupils enlarging, we see other signs of stress. I mean, this was an ambush after all. So let's go into some of the signs of stress that I saw. I saw him swallowing, not very often, but a few times. He was definitely sweating and squirming and stuttering. I don't have time to go into all the stuttering and sweating. But let's go into maybe some of the shoulder. He did have a little twitch one time on his shoulder when he was lying. And let's look at the chest and the breathing. Okay, so here we go. You can see the breathing. I mean, it's very obvious. He's under a whole lot of stress. Like I've said before, he's being ambushed. But there was one obvious lie when we caught that by body language. It's a twitch. You notice his shoulder twitching, and then he looks down. They ask him about his company, his new company, training the Chinese. Okay, he said, no, we're not training the Chinese, and this sort of, he twitches, he looks down. I mean, it's pretty obvious he's lying here.
Under no circumstances will we allow the war to become a, quote, private for-profit business. The former Afghan president, Hamid Karzai, said he vehemently opposes your proposal. It's a non-starter.
I think he would say differently if you asked him now.
I literally asked his office on Friday, and they said they're dead against it.
Well, I've talked to other people in his office who disagree with that.
Okay.
For construction services.
Your name's on the press release. Your name's on the press release several times, and it says, I've got the press release quote here, Xinjiang, China, establishing training facilities and buying security equipment and vehicles.
Again, it was for construction services.
It's training facilities.
If you look at the actual translation from Mandarin to English, it was for construction services, okay?
Sorry, we didn't translate it. This is your company's English press release, with respect.
The only training services, the only training services the company does is no Blackwater, no FSG.
You sold Blackwater.
You're right. There is no FSG employee that's armed doing that kind of security.
But you are working in China. You're Hong Kong-based. The majority of your company is Chinese-owned, is it not?
It's retail investors, everything from mutual funds. And
majority Chinese-owned, yes or no?
I don't know if it's majority, but there's a lot of Chinese ownership.
Sure. How much? It's your company. You're the executive deputy chairman.
No, it's publicly listed and it's all publicly disclosed.
You told Congress about this meeting, even though it's not in the transcript, just to be clear.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Congress, after they discovered this meeting, have talked about certain witnesses not telling the truth. But you believe you told Congress about this meeting, even though it's not in the transcript, just to be clear.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Congress about this meeting, even though it's not in the transcript, just to be clear.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Congress about this meeting, even though it's not in the transcript, just to be clear.
I believe so, yeah.
Congress about this meeting, even though it's not in the transcript, just to be clear. Congress, after they discovered this meeting, have talked about certain witnesses not telling the truth. But you believe Congress, after they discovered this meeting, have talked about witnesses not telling the truth. But you believe you told Congress about this meeting, even though it's not in the transcript, just to be clear.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Witnesses not telling the truth. But you believe you told Congress about this meeting, even though it's not in the transcript, just to be clear.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. To be clear.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. To be clear.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Congress, after they discover this meeting, have talked about certain witnesses not telling the truth, but you believe you Congress about this meeting, even though it's not in the transcript, just to be clear.
I believe so, yeah.
To be clear.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. You had another meeting, Congress, about this meeting, even though it's not in the transcript, just to be clear.
I believe so, yeah.
Congress about this meeting, even though it's not in the transcript, just to be clear.
I believe so, yeah.
Well, you can say that again. Well, like I said, he was exhausted after this ambush, and he only managed to insult the audience one time. So I'll leave you with his one insult, and well, it is what it is.
I don't think you're that sharp that you can tell the difference between a Polish guy. I don't think you're that sharp that you can tell the difference between a Polish guy employing U.S., NATO, and other country veterans.
The difference between Blackwater and NATO. I'm sorry, but it's
I'm
very
saying,
easy to tell.
I don't think you're that sharp that you can tell the difference between a Polish guy, a French guy, or a
Do you
Canadian guy.
think you're that sharp to tell the difference?
Well, okay, sure, all right.